Good morning, everyone. We welcome you this morning to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Enjoy and participate in our service. We welcome you. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truth, to question, to nurture your hearts and soul, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and perhaps to find answers to some of the bigger questions. We welcome you. We know you come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We hope you will find comfort, connection, challenge, and love here. We welcome you here regardless of racial identity, age, economic circumstances, immigration status, sexual orientation, or gender identity. We welcome you, and we are glad that you're here. If this is your first time or your 151st time, we're glad that you're here. Also, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter to keep you informed of all the activities here at UUFNN. The board's still working on some COVID rules here at UUFNN. Social distancing is no longer required. This means that folks could sit together, stand close, shake hands, and hug, if you wish. We also ask all to respect the wishes of folks who choose to continue social distancing, practice open communication with one another, and intentional about honoring personal boundaries. At this time, the wearing of masks are still required. The board will be considering next steps and potential changes to our masking policies. Please respond to the survey email that you receive and try to get it back to the board by Wednesday of this upcoming week. Thank you for your help on this important process. Those of you in Zoom will remain muted during the service, but you can put comments on the chat box. And you can also stay on following the service for coffee time conversation. So no matter where you are today, sit back and enjoy. We welcome here to voice your truth and to wade into life and the mug. We welcome you.
We give thanks this morning for this beautiful day and all of the possibilities that lie within it. Those that maybe we know are coming and those blessings that we don't even know to expect. I'm going to invite us this morning to hold an image in our minds and in our hearts as we observe this part 2 of Earth Day, and that is the image of the seed that stays deep in the dark earth throughout the winter. And then as spring begins to come, some energy happens within that seed, and against all odds, it breaks through its shell, and a shoot goes up and winds its way to the surface of the earth, and then it bursts forth into a plant or a flower or whatever it is it was meant to be. May we hold that in our consciousness throughout this morning. I'm going to invite Grayson forward to light our chalice this morning. As I share with you our chalice lighting words from Laura Wallace. As frozen earth holds the determined seed, this sacred space holds our weariness, our worry, our laughter, and our celebration. Let us bring seed and soul into the light of thought, the warmth of community, and the hope of love. May we see together and hear together and love together. May we worship together this day.
Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey-ya, 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 ho. Hey-ya, 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 ho. Mother, I hear you, river song. Eternal waters flowing on and on. Hey-ya, 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 ho. Hey-ya, 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 ho. Father, I see you in the eagle flies. Light of the Spirit, will take us higher. Hey-ya, 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 ho. Hey-ya, 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 hey, hey-ya, ho. Hey-ya, 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 ho. Hey-ya, 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 ho.
Happy day after Earth Day or Earth Day weekend. And actually, every day is Earth Day, is it not? You know, sometimes it can be difficult to digest and take in and hear all that is happening in our world and to stay engaged. And sometimes the climate crisis is just one more thing added to the pile, it feels like, right? And we dread that next piece of bad news about our beloved home, our Earth. This happened for me recently in a story about the manatees in Florida. Many of you know that I lived in Florida for over 10 years in my former life, my corporate life, and visited the manatees many, many times while I was living there and have great love for the manatees. And due to climate change, the habitat is having a hard time growing the sea plants that the manatees need for their survival. And it's quite a tragic and dire situation. And the scientists are working very hard to grow those sea plants, which are exactly like romaine lettuce. That's all they eat. They eat like just tons of romaine lettuce. These gentle giants that are like the size of Volkswagens and move slowly through the water. They're just amazing. And so I'm really hopeful that the scientists are able to find a way to help the sea plants grow to maintain their habitat. So it's hard to hear story after story like that. Catherine Hayhoe, who's a climate scientist at Texas Tech University, says, fear is useful to make us wake up and pay attention, but if we don't know what to do, it can paralyze us. In a recent New York Times article, it was reported that a climate change-focused survey of young people in 10 countries last year, 75% of the respondents said the future was frightening. Many people are using therapy to calm and mitigate these anxieties. Some have drastically changed their lives out of fear of a warming planet, even deciding not to have kids. This New York Times article goes on to say that rather than treating climate change, the challenge, as overwhelming or hopeless, the hope is that we can treat it as a call to action, and there are, in fact, reasons for hope. The world has made genuine progress in slowing climate change in recent years. In much of the world, solar and wind power are now cheaper than coal and gas. The cost of batteries has plummeted, making electric vehicles a little more accessible. Governments and business are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into clean energy. And this New York Times article goes on to say that before 2015, the world was expected to warm by about 4 degrees Celsius by 2100. And today, the world is on track to warm only 3 degrees. If the world's leaders meet their current commitments, we could keep that to about 2 degrees Celsius. Now, that's not enough to declare victory exactly, but every drop in degrees matters. Even 1/10 of a degree doesn't sound like very much, but could save lives by preventing more wildfires, droughts, and floods, and conflicts over dwindling resources. So while the very best outcome seems doubtful, so does the very worst. Scientists have long worried about runaway warming that generates out-of-control weather, leaves regions uninhabitable, but the projections right now suggest that the worst-case scenario is unlikely. And that is good news. There's more good news in the fact that there is a movement and recognition toward understanding that it is necessary to return to the indigenous people's wisdom and their ways if we are to save the earth. More and more is being written and reported and understood and observed and experienced about this all the time. You see, indigenous folk are committed to being good ancestors, leaving a better world for all those who will follow, for generations to come, and not just other indigenous people. This, to me, seems like a contrast to what I think many of non-indigenous folks feel, that if we're honest, and that is to say, we won't be around for the devastation, so why bother? There was a report on NPR on Friday that, according to the Indigenous Action Network, actions by indigenous peoples or led by indigenous peoples have reduced greenhouse gases by about 25%. I continue to think about, from time to time, the powerful, peaceful protests at Standing Rock amidst police brutality, horrible treatment and circumstances, and what a model this has been for our current climate movement and how it can look going forward. We also know that climate change affects disproportionately people of color and those who are already economically disadvantaged. So this should and is a clear justice issue for Unitarian Universalists. On Thursday evening, Sue and I attended the Nevada Land Trust Banff Film Festival here locally. Thank you, Jenny Kersey, for making me aware of that event. And I see Val Cook back there, who serves on the board there. And during that event, Executive Director Alicia Raban spoke of some of the upcoming projects that they're going to be focusing on here locally. And she talked about one of those including a renewed focus on water, protecting water and water rights near their source, keeping water where it was originally meant to be. You know, water is such a huge concern for us living here in the desert. Due in no small part to inspiration by Philip Moore, My family and I xeriscaped in the fall of 2020 as one of our COVID projects. About 80% of our yard, taking out the grass, leaving just a small patch for the dog. And what we found since that time is we're saving about 118,000 gallons of water in the warmer months per year. 118,000 gallons of water just for our household. And so I would challenge all of us to consider something like that. We might even consider something like that here on the UUFNN property at some point. You know, I was afraid that I would really miss the grass. You know, I grew up in the South, running barefoot in the summers, and honestly, I don't. It is gratifying to have such a tangible way to make a difference, more than some of the smaller ways that we try to incorporate day to day. Not that those are not important, but water is a deal. And so we have a few things to be optimistic about this Earth Day weekend. And as we hold in mind that image of the seed, against all odds, doing what it needs to do, not just to survive, but thrive. And hopefully this optimism can help us move from despair to action, finding our place in the movement to make a difference.
Put out the fire, put out the fire, put out the fire, our house is on fire. Put out the fire, put out the fire, put out the fire, our house is on fire. We love you, we hear you, we commit to change our ways, not later, but sooner, right now, for your future. Youth can't wait, put out the fire. Women can't wait, put out the fire. Blind can't wait, put out the fire. Our house is on fire. For our children, put out the fire. And their children, put out the fire. And their children, put out the fire. Our house is on fire. For songbirds, for cleaning, for the oceans and the lakes. Not later, but sooner, right now, for our future. Melting glaciers, put out the fire. Rising seas, put out the fire. Bleaching coral, put out the fire. Our house is on fire. Shrinking shoreline, put out the fire. Sinking island, put out the fire. Growing dry land, put out the fire. Our house is on fire. Let bees live, let trees grow, let the snow fall where it may. Not later, but sooner, right now, for the future, right now,
is on fire.
The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather there to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great and end of all world's faith traditions, to bring human beings closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering to allow us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support the self-supporting church and its many ministry. The gift of the congregation will be most greatly received. For those of us that are physically together here in the sanctuary, we will be passing the basket. For those of you who are on Zoom, you can do your offering virtually by texting 73256, putting UUFNN in the message box, hit send, and follow the instructions to provide your offering. You can also mail a check to the office to 780 Del Monte Lane, Reno, Nevada, 89511. But the slickest way and the cleanest way to donate is to sign up for automatic giving. Contact the office and Carol will send you an automatic draft authorization form or pull it from our website. Here at UUFNN, each month we also give folks the opportunity to share our generosity by sharing with a designated nonprofit. The Share the Plate recipient from April is Safe Embrace, which is committed to ending the cycle of domestic and sexual violence with innovative preventions and intervention services. Safe Embrace operates the largest and most inclusive safe house in Reno Sparks area. They are so much more than that, with counseling, housing, assistance, emergency transportation, and shelter, court, and support. They are there to walk the victims of domestic abuse, sexual assault, and human trafficking through any step in the process of getting safe and becoming a survivor. So now, let the offering begin. So let's ask David to come forward and help us with our blessing of the offerings to the work of this fellowship, which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy. We dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings.
Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey, 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 ho. hey, ho.
Hey, you congregation, it's me, Carrie DeBarger.
Climate activists in our midst, and one of those is our youth activist, Carrie DeBarger. And Carrie is this weekend competing in the We the People national finals. And what this is these are mock congressional hearings where different teams get to show off what they know about government and the Constitution, and they give a prepared testimony, and then the judges cross-examine them. And Carrie's team has won regional and state, and they're now competing in national finals this weekend. And through the mystery that is technology, Carrie is here with us this morning at the same time that she's competing in the We the People national finals. And Carrie's presentation will be followed by Al Ferrenberg.
Hey, you congregation, it's me, Carrie DeBarger, your friendly neighborhood worship associate and youth climate activist. Today, I'm here to talk to you in honor of Earth Day about my experience with climate activism and a couple of the ups and downs that I've had with my different experiences in this area. Many of you have probably heard me speak about this before at the congregation, but I thought I'd just lend some new perspective today. So often, I think we hear about the negatives that are going on climate-wise, especially on Earth Day. It's really easy to focus on the setbacks that we're experiencing in the climate activism area, but I want to bring a positive perspective today. This is a positive talk. So I just want to start off by talking about my trip to Washington, D.C. in March of 2019. Many of you have probably heard me talk about this specific trip before, but I spoke about it right when I got back from that trip, and I think now I kind of have some different perspective on it just because it's been a while and there's certain things that have really stuck out to me since then and stuck with me, just things that stuck out about the trip that I want to share today. So I actually went on this trip as a member of Schools for Climate Action, which I'll also refer to as S4CA, which is a grassroots organization. It's youth-based, mostly West Coast, but it has spread to other states as well. And basically the goal is to advocate for climate action in the sense that climate change is a generational justice issue. And basically what that means is that climate change is disproportionately affecting youth and students like myself, because we're the young generation who have to deal with a problem we didn't create. Especially now, it's affecting our educations. For example, school being closed due to wildfire smoke, or even my school was closed this year because of flooding when we had the atmospheric river. That's kind of the lens that Schools for Climate Action wanted to focus on with this trip. And I went on this trip. I actually was connected through one of our own members, Nancy Litchfield, who helped me to speak with the Washoe County School Board and get them to pass a climate action resolution in early 2019. And that was the point of the trip, to show that climate action resolution, which is basically a commitment to more climate-friendly behaviors in the district, and show that to the lawmakers in DC, and show that educators and parents and teachers and students all really do care about climate action and we want our lawmakers to make climate action a priority. And I also got one of these resolutions passed at my school through our student council, and we've seen the effects of this climate action resolution at school through them putting in reusable water fillers so that people don't have to use plastic water bottles. And vending machine sales for plastic water bottles at the school are actually way down since we implemented those reusable fillers. And then as far as district-wide, at our school, we have seen some changes in the water usage policy. So watering the grounds and the fields, they've really cut down a lot of their water use. So those are some of the things that have been implemented as a result of these resolutions. And we wanted to share that with the lawmakers. Well, the first thing that still sticks out to me about this trip is the craziness that it took to actually get to Washington, D.C. My dad and I went, just the two of us, and our flight was delayed 6 hours. So we spent the entire day in the booming metropolis that is the Reno Tahoe Airport. We did not play the slots. We actually worked on our speech of what I was going to say to the lawmakers when I saw them in Washington, D.C. So it was kind of a blessing and a curse. We got that work time, but it took 3 flights, different layovers, hopping different planes to finally get there at like 2 in the morning when we were supposed to get there at 3 p.m. So it ended up being a really long haul, never mind the fact that obviously air travel does have an impact on the environment. It does kind of strike me the irony of how much work was put into just getting to Washington, D.C., the place where our representatives are advocating on our behalf and making laws that affect our everyday life, and we can't even barely get there. Obviously, I know we live across the country, but it is a little crazy that it takes such effort to get to Capitol Hill so that we can have our voices heard. So when we finally got there, I had spent the past 3 months trying to schedule meetings with our representatives. Both Senators Cortez Masto and Senator Rosen were extremely difficult to communicate with. Several phone calls to their offices, emails, in an attempt to make a meeting with them or even one of their advisors went pretty much unanswered. And that kind of struck me. I'm obviously aware that both the senators have 3 million Nevadans knocking on their door, making phone calls, etc. But maybe that's a problem in itself. Our representatives can't communicate with us easily, even in an era of a ton of technology. I was able to schedule a last-minute meeting with Rosen's climate advisor, and we did present the resolutions to her, but we never heard back from the office after that meeting. So that was a bit of a dead end and a little bit of a disappointment. But nevertheless, I was able to have a meet and greet with them. They did set up a constituent meet and greet, and there were about 30 Nevadans there just to meet the senators, listen to them talk a little bit about what they were doing at that time in Congress. And I wasn't really able to ask them any questions about climate action legislation or show them the resolutions, but they did send me this lovely picture, me and my dad and the senators. Ignore the fashion choices, it was a different time. But they did send us that nice photo, but unfortunately I really wasn't able to talk to them in the way that I wanted or show them the resolutions. However, I was able to speak with Representative Mark Amodei, and his office was much more responsive and very eager to set up a meeting, and I could tell that one of Representative Amodei's values was speaking with constituents, and I could tell that he really prioritized that, even being in Washington, D.C. So we were able to set up a meeting with him, the man himself, and we actually spoke with him for over 2 hours, which I acknowledge is very rare because these Congress people are extremely busy given all the issues that are on their plate. So I was really happy that my representatives seemed to really care about what I had to say and wanted to listen to what we had to tell him. So I presented these climate action resolutions from the Washoe County School Board, the Carson County School Board, my school, a few neighboring schools, just to say, look, our schools and our students really want you to support climate action legislation. That's an issue that we care about. And he listened for hours, and he had somebody taking notes, and he sent a follow-up email thanking us. We got a few photos. It was an incredible experience, and not a lot of people get to speak with their congressman in person like that. So I'm really lucky to have been able to do that. Basically, his response to our climate action resolutions wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. He kind of said that he has a lot of education lobbying groups who come to him with certain issues, and education is a sector that he hears from a lot. But when he hears from these lobbyists, their number one concern, their number two concern, even their third concern is never climate change. The education lobbyists never come to him saying that climate change is the biggest issue that's affecting education and that they need him to do something about it. He did acknowledge that he's seen the effects of climate change in the state. Obviously, we all have, with the fires recently probably being the most example, and our kind of extreme weather shifts, and he did acknowledge that that was a problem. And he did say, he is a member of the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus in the House. And that was kind of his step towards being more open to climate action legislation. However, he is not supporting Biden's plan or the New Deal plan, the Green New Deal plan. So he's kind of wishy-washy as far as climate legislation goes. But he did listen to us, and that's something I really respect. A lawmaker should be able to listen to his constituents and at least respond to a phone call or an email, unlike the senators who were not able to. But something that really stuck out to me when meeting with him was actually how many issues are really on his plate. As soon as we left his office, there was another group waiting to talk to him about children's cancer. Now, obviously, children's cancer is an incredibly important issue, and that means that these lawmakers have thousands of issues to hear about and try to fix, and we were just one of those, like a drop in a bucket. So to me, obviously, climate change, I think, should be at the top of everybody's priority list. Climate action legislation is super important, but so should childhood cancer. That's incredibly important as well. So we really have to take into perspective how many issues our legislators are juggling. And when they hear from one group, they're also hearing from another group about a totally different issue. So they really have to juggle a lot on their plate. And you know, to me, I always thought people who didn't want to devote all their time to climate action just didn't care. But obviously, after talking to Representative Amodei for hours, he did care about what we had to say. And at the same time, he had a lot of other things on his plate. So that's kind of something that stuck with me about that meeting, is kind of a new perspective, just that maybe lawmakers do want to do something, but they have a lot of things to consider. There's a lot of moving parts. But there were some great things about this trip that I want to add as well. First of all, I met dozens of other youth through S4CA who were climate activists and had the same mission that I do, and some of whom I'm still in touch with, who are really excellent people doing great work. I felt like I was able to make a difference, really, because the bottom line is that you can recycle and you can ride your bike and you can wash your clothes on cold water instead of hot water and save energy and use less plastic, and you can do all those things. But the best thing that you can do is lobby and advocate to your lawmakers and support them in supporting climate action, because they want to hear from you. We're their constituents and they're representing us. So the best thing that you can do is call them and pressure them and encourage them to support climate action legislation. So my call to action for you today is, after service, later today, if you have 5 minutes of your time, call your representative, call your local representative, call your federal representative, write them a letter, send them an email, letting them know that constituents from all walks of life, from all religions, from all political viewpoints, care about climate change. And that is something that especially Representative Amodei seemed to be really responsive to. And that's a really impactful thing that you can do super easily right now, today. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Unfortunately, I'm not at church today. I'm actually competing at the We the People Nationals as you're watching this. And in May, we're traveling back to DC, so that'll be my second trip, and I'll get to see it all again and see where all the action happens again. Wish us luck at Nationals, and I'll see you all soon. I love speaking to you guys. Please feel free to reach out. You forever. Bye, guys. Hey, you congregation. It's me, Carrie.
All right, so what should we do about climate change? Well, we can always blame the big bad oil companies and fossil fuel companies, and certainly they deserve some blame because they've misled us for so long. But the bottom line is, we're the ones using their product. We're the ones using that energy, and we like to use that energy. It's really important to us. We want that trip to Caribbean, that Caribbean cruise. We want to go fly all the way back east to go visit our grandkids. We want that 4,000 square foot house. Or we want that great big car so we can haul all our buddies all the way across the desert to Elko so we can shoot a couple of chuckers and drink beer. Or like in my case, I want to drive 3 hours each way down to Mammoth Lakes so I can ride an electrically powered chair to the top of the mountain 20 times a day, and so I can ski down it. This is stuff that's important to us. What's going to cause us to give up some of these things, or at least to greatly modify the way we do them? Well, I know a lot of the people here at the UU are willing to make sacrifices for the planet and for our grandchildren, but there's a lot of other people who don't. And there's a lot of people in the middle who probably won't do too much unless everybody's sharing their part. The greatest incentive, of course, is money. In the past, we've tried to solve this problem with a bunch of government regulations, standards, and incentives, and those are all very well intentioned, and they work to some degree, but they don't always work as intended. They don't go far enough, for sure, and they're not comprehensive. They don't cover all fields of energy that we use that are causing the problem with our climate. Citizens Climate Lobby has a different approach, one that utilizes the American free market. The basic idea is, it's called carbon fee and dividend. The basic idea is that you put a fee on carbon at the wellhead or the mine, wherever. It's a relatively simple thing to do. The government collects this money, which of course raises the price of the coal, the oil, and the gas that we're using. And of course, then encourages us to conserve and makes renewables much more cost-effective than they already are. Then they raise this fee every year so that people have time to adjust, and as the price goes up, people conserve. One of the issues, of course, is what is the government going to do with all this money? Citizens Climate Lobby's approach is give the money back to the people. All of it. But give it back to them on a per capita basis. So what that means is that the person who has a big carbon footprint is going to pay a whole lot more for his energy that he's going to get back from the government. Whereas the person with a very small carbon footprint will actually make money from this approach. And of course, in the process, there'll be a lot more conservation. Citizens Climate Lobby has chapters all over the world, especially in the United States. We have 3 here in Nevada. The one here in Reno was formed about 7 years ago, and the charter members were essentially the Green Sanctuary Committee from our UUFNN, all half a dozen of us, and a couple of people from the Quaker Fellowship. It's much larger now. We have several hundred people on our email list. We do things like I'm doing right now, trying to educate people about carbon fee and dividend, because that's the approach that we're focused on. We do various outreach efforts, have many tabling events at various organizations. There's going to be one at Earth Day. And we try to meet with people, explain the carbon fee and dividend approach to them. We also seek endorsements from various business organizations and also civic organizations like the UUFNN and the City Council. And we have a very large media effort that is run by our own Michelle Hamilton here, which has a big web presence as well as getting lots of information published in the papers. And in fact, one of the most prolific publishers that we have is also here from the UUFNN, which is Janet Nelson. She's gotten a whole bunch of letters to the editor and an op-ed published. So all this comes together when we actually go to lobby our federal Congress people, the same thing that Carrie was talking about there, where she went to Washington. And we meet with them several times a year, again, trying to convince them to adopt a program like carbon fee and dividend. And it's a big change. It's going to take a lot of political will for that to happen. If you're interested in getting involved in this kind of a thing, contact one of us or go online to citizensclimatelobby.org or just do a search for it. And we'd be glad to have you involved. Thank you.
As we take a few moments this morning to join our hearts and our spirits and our minds in our time of community meditation and prayer, may we hold that image of the seed. And may we allow that to settle into us and integrate it. May we experience that same kind of energy within us. We gather this morning our joys and our concerns, our celebrations, our milestones, our worries, our fears. And we hold them together in a time of reflection. And those who are joining us on Zoom are invited to record those intentions and what is in your hearts in our chat. We gather all that is in our hearts this morning, even those things that are held in such deep places that we have no words. And we bring them all together knowing that they are held in the heart of love. And we offer our gesture this morning, one to another, which is one hand on the heart, the palm extending it outward, as a way of saying, we are all in this together. We hear each other, we see each other, we hold each other in our hearts. And may we always be there for one another in all the ways that we need. Amen.
Rock me, ocean, warm me, sun, swing low swallows when day is done. Rock me, ocean, bless me, moon, though I leave here, I'll come back soon.
I want to thank you so much for joining us for our Earth Day observance today, and hope that you have learned something or gained something maybe that you didn't expect from this time together this morning. We have just a couple of announcements as we close our service, and Sheila has an auction announcement.
You guys are so fantastic. Well, my name is Sheila Shea, and I've been working this auction for about 10 years plus. And I tell you what, I keep saying every year, I don't think it's going to be that interesting to people. And every year I am absolutely blown away and amazed at the energy that comes from you all. So here's my message for the day. Hopefully, my mind's been elsewhere, so hopefully I can bring this together as an announcement that makes sense. Okay, the donations have now been closed, and there are some fantastic donations. Donations of walks and hikes and game nights and full moon nights and dinners. Read the catalog. It's coming out on Tuesday. That's the final catalog. There are additional items if you peruse the catalog that went out this week. There's still more stuff. It keeps coming in. So the bidding online, because you'll get that information on Tuesday along with the catalog, please read the first 2 pages, because otherwise Karen's going to be really mad if I talk you through this whole process right now. It's way too long. They're called Rules of the Game. There are basically 2 types of bidding that you're going to do. One is you're going to bid for dinners and events, which have a 2-price scheme. The other one, and those are for dinners, for example, and you want to really win a dinner, give us a priority bid, because then you're first come, first serve, because everything is time stamped in that online bidding. If you really want that dinner, bid priority, bid soon, you'll probably get it. The other one is for basically services. So, and there's a starting bid. So if you want the DeBarger family to take care of your pets for, I think it was 5 days, a fantastic item, bid high, because the highest bidder is going to win that. Then, let's see if, hang on here, I got to read my notes because, as I said, my mind is not exactly, anyway. Okay, then we go to the auction, okay? All the bidding that's in that catalog is still open at the auction, but the focus really is going to be on other things. You can come to the finance table if there's leftover dinners and give us your bid on that. They're not closed yet, but at the auction, you're going to enter the door. You're going to get a bidder number, and don't write my number down, because I'll come and get you if you're trying to bid things to my number. You're going to get this bidder number, and you will be able to participate, not only those at the auction, but on Zoom. Thank you to Philip Moore for this, for the live auction items, which there will be about a dozen. And all you're going to do when that is auctioned off by Dave Bianchi, you're going to hold up your bidder number. Highest bidder is going to win. There's going to be a whole table of take-home items for sale, so you can either hand Cindy Fogel cash or a check, take these lovely items home. They're going to be less than $25, and there's some really nice things. You're not going to believe the baskets that the auction team put together with your things and things that were donated. We have at least 23 beautiful wrapped baskets. They will all have bidder sheets, and so you'll sign up. And then there's about 10 other items that were not listed in the catalog. They're display only, and those are nice items, and they'll be out on the table for bids. But to come to the auction, you really better RSVP. So please do that today. Today is the last day. And then we are going to have a raffle, of course. And the lunch, if you're the RSVP, if you're gluten-free or vegetarian, you tell us that. And I just want to say one more thing, because I've taken way more time already. The auction, the priceless thing about the auction is that when you gather with other UUs to do some of these auction events, that is totally priceless. We're bringing our community together, playing games, eating dinner, going on hikes, having that wonderful potato salad that my friend Kathleen makes every year. It's priceless. So please participate. Now we're done with the donations. Start spending. Thank you. When what? Oh, May Day, May Day. It is on May 1st. Now, this room is going to be set up on Saturday, and the tables will already be replacing your seats out there, and you're going to find a place at the table, because eventually you'll need a table because you're going to be eating, and you'll have drinks, and you're going to have your catalog, and you're going to have your bidder number. So this room will look very different. But right after service, we go right into the auction. Thank you, Karen, for giving me so much time.
And because we know how you are, dress festively, wear your May Day pillbox hat. Just, you know, we're going to have a great time next Sunday. It's going to be awesome. And next Sunday's service is going to be a really special one because I'm going to tell you the secret to transforming your life. So be here for service right before the auction. It's going to be a fun, fun day. We look forward to seeing you then. And may we, in climate and all things, answer the call to love. Beloved, would you rise in body or spirit to receive our final blessing? Beloved, you are that seed, and that energy lives in you, and it is ripe for bursting forth in love and in beauty. Blessed be. Amen. and namaste.